Welcome. You are listening to Rev Up with Alanis Marketing, and I'm your host, Roxanne Alanis. Welcome to Rev Up. We're so excited to have Dave Buerger as our guest tonight. And Dave, you are the co-founder and president of Connexus, but also you have a more recent addition to the title, which is vice president of Kuna Mutual Group. And so I'd love to talk more about that. But I'm so excited to have you here because you are revolutionizing the credit union business and have been. And I think you've been sort of one step ahead and everybody's been trying to catch up to you. And now seeing the value of what you've done. But I'd love to start out with your story because it's fascinating how you were working in a credit union and saw an opportunity and decided to create a technology that would make credit unions' experience for their customers better. So I'd love to share a little bit more about that and then a little bit of that journey, because I think sometimes when people have a great idea, there's some fear around getting started. And sharing some of your story, I think, would be fascinating.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on the show. In hindsight, in retrospect, it's been quite a long journey. The journey for me began way back as actually 21 years ago. I started my career at Redwood Credit Union here in Northern California, where my company is also headquartered now. Got my career started in credit unions. My degree had nothing to do with financial services or technology. I went to school. I studied media arts at Chico State University with the goal of becoming a filmmaker making snowboard videos. So that was my dream.
That's great.
I was going to travel the world making snowboarding videos. Instead, I moved to Santa Rosa with my, at that time, girlfriend, who would soon be fiance and now is my wife of many years. Don't ask me. and I got the only job I could find in town, and that was a entry-level job at the credit union, working in marketing. And after working there for about 5-6 years, mainly doing direct mail marketing, some email. Email was in its infancy. A lot of print. Everything was direct mail, newspaper, print, things like that. But we were marketing financial services, loans and deposits for the most part. And I was spending a lot of money on direct mail campaigns. And that was when one of my co-founders and I hit on an idea for leveraging just a different method for reaching our membership, trying to give people more options and more visibility into their purchasing power when it came to lending. A lot of people, were coming to us for auto loans and credit cards and home equities. And
Can you talk about a little bit about how credit unions are different than banks?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the products and services that they offer are very similar, right? Loans, for the most part, are the bread and butter. As well as deposits. So they operate on bringing in money in the form of deposits and lending it out in loans. And so that banks and credit unions offer very similar products and services. Credit unions are not for-profit financial cooperatives. So where they're not owned by stockholders, the earnings that they make and much of those earnings are returned to the membership in the form of lower rates on loans and higher yields on deposits. But banks and credit unions both serve the consumer demographic with very similar products and services. So my company today, Connexus, we serve both banks and credit unions. We got our start in the credit union space just because we know that space, and I think it's important for any entrepreneur to serve a space that they're familiar with. I think that gives them obviously a leg up. But the concept for what would then become our company was based in data-driven marketing techniques. We were targeting groups of our customer base to serve up direct mail offers that for loans. We would say you're pre-approved for a car or you're pre-approved for a Visa card. We'd send out this mail. At the time, most creditworthy individuals out in the world had a mailbox full of this junk. Anytime they opened their mailbox, there was a stack of you're approved for this credit card or that. And that was my job. I was sending out junk mail, and it was successful, but not very efficient. And so the need arose for a more efficient way to serve our customers while also preserving our marketing budget and boosting ROI. Long story short, we hit on a concept for marketing multiple products, loan products to individuals simultaneously, saying, based on everything we know about you as a consumer, as our member, here are the various products that we have to offer you: a car, a Visa card, a car, a boat, an RV, a home equity or improvement loan. We have all these things for you. Here's how much you have to spend across all these different categories, and you're approved for all of those products.
Well, what's amazing is you saw this opportunity, because I think when you put it in perspective, people don't realize this is before the internet was really taking off. This is before big data. This is before the integration of technology as we know it now. So you were way ahead of the curve in that, and saw this opportunity. So you had to go build this.
Yeah.
It wasn't something like we have now. There's all these apps and you can throw some stuff together.
Yeah, it didn't exist, right? I mean, the concept that we created was, because this was 2006, 2007, it was, I mean, and I'll admit this today freely, we didn't have any grand ideas of being this mobile lending, automation software. Mobile didn't exist, right? People had Blackberries, but there were no iPhones back then. We started with something that we knew, and that was direct mail, and we improved on the direct mail process. It was that, and it was very successful, and it was revolutionary. Nobody was doing what we were doing with direct mail at the time, to the point where everybody came asking, the phone started ringing, how are you doing this? How we want to do this too. And the truth was, there was no software, there was no product that they could use that would do this for them. It was methods. It was manual slicing and dicing of Excel spreadsheets and literally moving stacks of paper around on the floor and figuring out how to make this work. So the opportunity that we saw, I left my job at the credit union in 2007 to pursue this, was creating software that would allow someone to automate this direct mail strategy. It built on the strategy quite a bit. It added a lot of capabilities, but it was still based in direct mail. And lucky for me, I guess, the financial markets crashed horrifically in 2008 as I was going out trying to raise money to do this. Nobody wanted to touch my concept with a 20-foot pole. I was the last thing that anyone wanted to invest in was lending software. Because,
I remember that.
yeah,
It
was lending that got us into the mess, right? All the housing bubble burst, and all the banks and were threatened with there was a lot of it was just dark times for financial services. So I I knew that the concept was still sound, but and I was determined to make it happen at some point. I had also taken money from friends and family. My first round of funding came from, parents and aunts and uncles and neighbors, throwing money together to incorporate the company and file for our patents and things like that. Those things were occurring, in 2007, 2008, mostly 2008. But as things happen, I personally ran out of money. My savings ran dry. That money I raised was not to pay myself; it was to build a company. So when that dried up, or my savings dried up, I took a job at a winery because it sounded fun and different and not a conflict of interest with anything I'd be working on, because I knew I was going to, keep going on this thing. And so for 4 or 5 years, I worked at the winery in marketing during the day, and then I'd come home and I'd work on the business at night, sometimes all night, and very little sleep during that time.
Yeah. I mean that in itself is a testament and amazing because you had a drive. You knew you'd figure something out and you kept going. And not a lot of people would do that. I mean, that perseverance is, I think, a big part of why you enjoy the success
It's
today.
key. I mean, it's perseverance is absolutely the key to success as a young startup. Over and over again, there were times where I should have, everything was pointing to you should stop doing this, Dave. This is a stupid idea. And some of that's motivates you too. My primary motivators at that time were fear, and that was fear of of failure, fear of losing the money that I had borrowed from these friends and family. Fear of going to Thanksgiving and having to sit down at the table with all these people I'd taken money from and telling them that I blew it. So that motivates you in a very real way.
Yeah.
It was also, there are a lot of people, even close to me. I was aware of it. They never really confronted face to face with it, but I was aware that there was a lot of kind of eye rolling going on, right? Dave thinks he's going to start a software company. Who does this guy think he is? He's a film major at media. He's not a Stanford grad. I was 20, in my late 20s at the time, and so it was I don't know, the desire not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. It wasn't
Right.
so much to stick it to anybody as much as it was to say, you know what, I can do this. I am capable.
A little bit of a competitive drive,
Yeah,
for sure. There's no question
yeah,
that that's part of the ingredients of success, that perseverance and then some
yeah.
competitiveness that you're going to win.
Yeah, and then the other piece of it that's also not enough credits given to the support structure around someone, right? Like for me personally, I was 27, 28 at the time, married. My wife and I had just had identical twin boys, who were, gosh, they were like 7 months old when I quit my job. I mean, who does that?
Oh my
You quit your
gosh.
job when you have two infants at home. That was just you know, a bad choice, but it turned out to be a great choice, but it's not the prudent thing to do. But my wife really felt strongly about the opportunity as well. She heard me talk about what it was I was doing, and she believed that I had the capability to pull it off. And I knew from that someday it would take off, right? Somebody would, if not me, somebody would take a similar concept, bring it to market, and make a living at it. And I didn't want to be laying there on my deathbed someday, hopefully in my late years, thinking I blew an opportunity. That should have been me.
Right.
That was our concept that we came up with, and someone else, took it to market. So that was another
Yeah.
motivator. But the support of my wife saying, "Yeah, it's okay. I believe you can do this. Let's give it a shot."
That's awesome.
And that
Yeah.
would play out
That
later
is
on,
really
in the story. Actually, it comes around full circle when we were acquired. Um, we actually were acquired. Uh, the deal closed on her birthday, and it was not a
Oh,
mistake, not a coincidence. That was, a piece of that was, a term of the deal. I said, if it's gonna
yeah.
happen, it's gotta close on her birthday, and that was my gift to
That's
her.
that's
Little
great.
payback.
So, it's funny. There's no, you can't really put a timing on it when success is going to happen.
Mhm.
But there is definitely a drive you have to have through the tough times and I mean, you even took another job and went away, even though you kept working on it, and then came back and literally had to start from the ground level,
Yeah.
from ground zero, to start getting people interested, talking. Uh, what would you say for somebody who's thinking about starting? They have a dream, they see an opportunity. Um, what would be some of the key factors you would say that would be important to keep them going?
Well, I mean, iterate, right? Is kind of the thing. Like, be there. There's sort of this taking it one step at a time, bite-sized chunks. Yeah. When I first left, well, I left my second job. So I was building the product while I was at the winery. Then I sold my first deal from the vineyard. I was standing on the vineyard on my phone. A large credit union signed a license agreement. I couldn't believe it. I went into
Wow.
this panic and I had to quit that job the next day. But if I looking back, if I were to know everything that I would go through, all of the hurdles that would need to be jumped, um, if I had known that at the start, I would have been far too fearful. I would have thought that's too much work. There's no way I could accomplish all of that. Um, so set your vision. The vision was always huge, right? And it ended up
Right.
being way bigger than even the vision I'd set at the time. But um, it's, you know, look at the next maybe 3, 4 hurdles. If it's fundraising, if it's product development, if it's you go to market, whatever aspect of the business it is, don't look too far ahead. Things change all the time, and
Mm-hmm.
don't when it comes to product development, if you're creating a product or whatever this thing is that you want to do, um, you hear a lot about minimum viable product, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's important. Don't try to you know bring the perfect product to market. Bring something to market that's unique, that has value, and then allow the market to tell you to steer you in the right direction. What for us it was, we had this idea based in direct mail, but during the financial crisis, when I was trying to figure out how to make this all happen, the iPhone came out, and that was
Mm-hmm.
2007, and everything changed. And the whole market changed. The whole world changed, really, if you think about
Yep.
it, because now we had financial services moving rapidly into a digital era where everything needed to be mobile, digital. Online banking, even on your desktop computer, changed considerably. But
Right.
but it was this kind of mobile mentality of the consumer mindset needing everything at the click of a button, right? Mobile strategies became, you have to distill an experience down to something that can be consumed quickly on a mobile phone because attention spans are shorter on a little device, and there's
Right.
not real estate, so everything has to be kind of simplified. And what I saw there is that the strategy we had created for direct mail was actually the the formula to take digital lending as close to a one-click sort of Amazon-like experience as possible. Because what we were
Mm-hmm.
doing is we were eliminating loan applications, which is the long form that you have to fill out,
Right.
eliminating those in favor of what we call perpetual approval. And when you have perpetual approval, you don't fill out a loan application, you just activate a loan with a click of a button. So we had to, I pivoted the whole strategy at that time to focus on a mobile strategy. And then from there, because it was just a brave new world, nobody knew really where mobile was going at the time. We just
Mm-hmm.
got something to market, we got some people to pay for it, and then we consistently checked in with them to say, what is it that you need now? You know, what would add value for you, the, the client, and that helped guide our roadmap moving forward. So
Yeah.
it was that iterative process in product development, but also in the strategy. You have to be willing to pivot. You don't want to go too far away from what you set out to do. You have to stay true to the
Right.
The bigger
The end goal of, yeah, helping credit unions, helping them do better at what they were meant to do, which is get customers their product, do it in an efficient way. I mean, that didn't change.
yeah,
That was the goal.
yeah, and it was it was still based in lending and everything and the marketing of
Right.
these products and services, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
for us it paid off, and also going back to the idea of bite-sized chunks and sort of one hurdle at a time. Um, if we had been, just stuck to our guns as far as what it is that we, thought we were going to do, we wrote a business plan. We never opened it. We spent all this time creating this business plan, and it was a good
Yeah.
process. It got us thinking about all the aspects of business because we were not, seasoned entrepreneurs or business people. We were, capable sort of middle management people at the time, right? We didn't know finance, we didn't know business planning, we didn't know forecasting. So we had to learn all these things along the way. So the business planning process was an important way for us to kind of grasp that there are more things than just building the software. There's strategies of, how are we going to sell it? What target markets are we going to go after? How much money do we need to make to break even and all these things? But in the
Right.
end, the business plan, I've got a pile of them. I save them as a memento. Every once in a while, I just pick one up and laugh at it. But um, you know, it helps chart a course, but it's constantly changing. So every year you go through a process, strategic planning process of, all right, let's look at what we said we were going to do last year versus what we
Yeah.
did. Let's reprioritize. Let's throw in all the crap that we learned this year, and let's, you know, reset and move forward. Um,
That is that's so powerful and so right on for continuing to grow a company. You've been listening to Rev Up. I'm your host, Roxanne Alanis. To listen to other episodes and learn more about our guests and to rev up your revenue, visit revuppodcast.com.